on today's Talking Point, and we're going to talk about the colloquium marking the 60th birthday of former governor of Imo State, Emeka Ihedioha, which has created quite the storm across the country because some of the political leaders who attended that colloquium get some very interesting hot takes about Nigeria's democratic process. So let's have a listen once again to those thoughts and what they say about the fate of Nigeria's democracy. It appears we're experiencing some technical hitches there, but of course, we'll circle back to that to hear from the horse's mouth the thoughts of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who said, listen, democracy that we have in Nigeria is not actually working. He also did say quite a lot about how un-African it is. The likes of Peter Obi were part of the conversation, and he also had quite a lot to say about the great undoing of the current administration, who instead of building on top of past administrations to strengthen institutions, is now undermining it. I think we have those clips, so let's hear from the horse's mouth at the 60th birthday colloquium of Emeka Ihedioha.
But when we talk of democracy, we should remember that in Africa, before the colonial rule and the colonial power, we have a form of government which attended to the needs of our people. And whatever you call it, to me, it is democracy.
If you look at where we are today, it's like they started in 1999, laid the foundation. Some people came and took it to a decking, and some people were trying to raise it to first floor, and some people came and knocked everything down. That's the situation where we are now. Everything has been knocked down.
The point I'm making is that democracy is a work in progress. And with all these imperfections, it must be admitted that the essence, that is why democracy must have an eraser. You make a mistake, you correct it. You make a mistake, you correct it. The challenge for us in Nigeria is that every time, and I think it was my friend Donald Duke who made the point, he said that, the problem in Nigeria, everybody who comes as governor wants to go back to the bottom of the hill to start something completely different. If we do not have a mechanism by which we are measuring our growth, then our chase for a democratic society becomes an empty chase.
In this same National Assembly, we have the same constitution in a way under Section 305. It has not been amended since the commencement of the democracy. We have our standing rules, and we have precedents of how 2/3 were able to be established in those instances where emergency was declared in Plateau, emergency was declared in Borno and Yobe. And we stuck by the rules. And we were guided by the Constitution. What happened in the last one? So I still insist that you need to check out the operators of the system.
Right, and the pontification on the state of the nation continues. We're asking the all-important question, how functional is Nigeria's democracy at this moment in time, and how true are some of those critical statements from those statesmen who should definitely have an idea about what it means for Nigeria and Nigerians. Join us for this conversation is High Chief Peter Ameh, National Secretary of the Coalition of United Political Parties, a former national chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, a former presidential candidate in the 2019 elections, who will share his thoughts on this and many other developing issues within the polity. Good to see you this morning. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. My pleasure to be here.
Right. Let me just get your initial reaction to what you heard there in the clip. There are a lot more ideas that these prominent political figures express, but what do you make of their characterization of the current state of affairs?
You see, the issue is that it's difficult for those in government to accept, an analysis based on facts or analyze issue and accept it that this is the current reality. Why I say this is that you can't tell me that we have democracy have progressed since the APC took power in 2015. You can't tell me that, because records have come to show that when they have the opportunity to follow democratic process and the rule of law to be able to achieve whatever objective that is set up to help resolve the issues around legal, whether legal or social issues. Like when Buhari came in, you look what happened. There was no time they were not breaking into the houses of judges, picking up judges as if they were common criminals. Yes, there could be corruption cases against these people, but there are other processes that you can go. This intimidated the judiciary, and it was obvious broke the judiciary beyond the level we expected. That's why you find out all judgment that came through the period of that time. The judiciary couldn't match, their strength to be able to say, this government, what you've done is wrong. This government, what is that? Because there were palpable fear all over, including those who were outside the judiciary. You now have a situation that in the 2019 presidential election and general election, there was no electoral act. The presidency never put up an executive bill, nor the National Assembly initiated anyone to have an electoral governing law that will govern the conduct of 2019 election. We did that election without any governing authority. So you come up to this current dispensation. You have a situation where people are being picked up, for being social critic, for just talking on social media. You have a police IG that the tenure has expired, and the government find a way to be able to extend that. You have an election in Edo that you find out that the election was conducted. It does not mean the barest minimum of transparency to just talk about that. And trying to put the very dangerous icing on the cake. The president removed a democratically elected governor and also suspended the House of Assembly. Suspended both executive and legislative arm in a state. It is an aberration in the democracy. It is unacceptable. This foundation, if you look at it properly and you look at how shrinking the democratic discussion has become, when you will go to stations, people say, the views expressed are the views of the person. These are military way tactics to be able to undermine the participation at which Section 39, Section 40, Section 41, either freedom of expression, freedom of movement, and freedom of participation, has given to every citizen to be able to have a say in the process of how governors are managed.
You would go as far as saying that, because the counter argument is, if democracy is not so functional, we don't have the principles and the tenets that guaranteed a part of it, which is freedom of expression, for instance, right? That colloquium wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't be here, having this conversation if those things are not guaranteed.
That's true. All this thing happened even when the military had sway in Nigeria. I'm old enough to see all the things that happened. But there was a lot of. They allow you some barest minimum of discussion, And if you look at even the response from the presidency by Onanuga, you look at how harsh the response is, and they say it's like a warning, like a military style warning. You go and read it if you want. I can even read it online so that people can hear and then go and check the judgment. In Russia today, people still have all kind of freedom, all kind of discussion. But where there's no election, where there's no, there's no process of transparency and accountability, and trying to see that you are beholden to the public, and that your responsibility is to be able to be responsive to the yearning and aspirations of your people, then that also affects democratic governance.
You would go as far as to say between 2015 and 2025, the current year, Nigeria has changed so much that you can compare us to Russia.
Nigerians have really changed. What I told you about Russia, you said something that we're holding meeting, we're going to media. People still go to media in Russia. You understand? But does that mean, do they have a free hand democratic process there? You are trying to make, because we sat here and we are talking, and that means there's democracy.
There's 100% chance you're not going to get arrested.
You can have a quasi-democratic process that is not full-blown, that does not have the necessary full-blown credentials that could be judged as a democratic. You have a situation where you can just sit down. People avoid the process of taking legal route, and police come to pick people up from their houses. There's intimidation of everyone on the street. See, today, you have a Supreme Court that will seize a state allocation. And then the executive arm of government that was elected as equal as the one who is elected in the state. We run a federal system, my brother. We run a federal system. And in the federal system, there's a cascading level that you have federating unit that come together to form a country. It is not how it was done in our case, but that is how it is. Because in the federal system, you have more than one level of government. And you have a federating unit like the states, who are supposed to be, supposed to be autonomous on their own. They are supposed to have their own executive, have their own legislature that make law for the good governance and development of the state. And then you have thrown that all in a democracy, that a governor is elected for a 4-year term with an authority to take an oath to execute laws for the good governance of the state. And we are talking that we have a sole administrator in Rivers State today that will be making by decrees. Whatever he's doing is not going to be under the dictate of the law. It's not accommodated anywhere in our laws. And you have all Nigerians, including the friends and foes of Mr. President, have told him this is undemocratic. This is not acceptable. There's no law that governs that. Why do you have a democracy that you have when the Constitution clearly said that if you are going to vote for a state of emergency, that you have a 2/3, and that it shall be by vote. And then you have the National Assembly going by voice vote. And then you have people like ex-Governor Tambua coming to public and say they did not meet the 2/3 requirement. And even you have Honorable Agocha in the House of Rep asking the Speaker that there should be a head count so that Nigerians can see the level of transparency that had occurred in the process of endorsing the state of emergency of Mr. President. That is even different because the National Assembly have no right whatsoever to even discuss the issue of endorsing the removal of governor and the House of Assembly. So I'm just talking of the state of emergency where they have the right to debate. Because whatever that was done in the removal was a total collapse of our democratic institution.
So you would say there is enough evidence to support this highly critical take that Nigeria's democracy is on a decline. You would say there is enough evidence to support that
Massive
argument.
evidence,
right.
There's a lot.
What about the thoughts of Bishop Matthew Kuka who say, listen, that is just the imperfection of life, right? There is no society where you can go to today where you can say everything is perfect, everything is working according to plan. That our democracy, as imperfect as it is a work in progress, and we have to admit that. Because if we don't admit that, we would be chasing shadows here.
I belong to the same faith with him. I'm a Catholic, and it will be difficult to try to speak on this on his own side. But the truth is,
do you disagree?
I disagree. I humbly and
you don't think
disagree.
It's a work in progress?
If you have a work in progress, you can't continue to have a nail and an hammer, and you are hitting wrong direction forever, and you keep on telling people, no, I will see hit the center, and you can see where the point is, where you have to make the point. You can't have a situation that we are not seeing well. Look, the current president today has been called Democrat, has been called, a champion of democracy over the years since 1990, where we went to Senate in the 93, aborted the Third Republic, and you have a situation. I think it's just that Nigerians don't study things well. There have been issues like that in Lagos State where people have called him, the godfather of politics in the state, and there have not been so much democracy in that direction. There have been issues that even those who don't go in land get removed. So you are brought up to the presidency. It is a dangerous trend because the section 308 that offers immunity to state governors clearly stipulates that there shall be immune from criminal and civil proceeding. That's why they can't sue while they're in office and nobody can sue them. So you cannot now have an arbitrary a sole decision of a sitting president just because he controls the state apparatus of security. That's the only thing where he gets his power from. It's not from law. It's not from law because if we have a situation like in America where states have national guards that are under their control, maybe we'll be having challenges today. So the president, the kind of power that the National Assembly is now continuously using to endorse the president's illegality can also affect our democracy one day. Because you cannot, today, I would dislike, I would not want to say this, but I have to say, despite no matter how much I respect our former president, today why you find out that Obasanjo is not speaking against this, is because he did it. So if he speaks now, people say, you say if you want to talk, sure, understand, but he regrets this. So why will somebody else come who have touted himself as a Democrat to come and take the same process and destroy his legacy Because in future to come, he will be on the receiving hand and he cannot speak about it. So I do not know the kind of people who sat down and convince him that it is a rightful decision to be taken. You cannot have the process that which Section 188 has clearly stipulate how to elect the governor and how to remove him from office. So even when they said the National Assembly can take over functions of State Assembly in Section 11, 4 and 5, there was no place that said they can remove them.
Isn't that also a part of the problem that, you may not want to admit it, but that the law, as holistic as it attempts to be in the provisions of the Constitution, is also a work in progress. And that's why you cannot have everything captured in the 1999 Constitution as amended.
I don't think we need more laws. I think the operators of our laws are the people who are manipulating.
We
this
definitely
process.
need more amendments, don't we?
No. We would need amendment always. I don't know people who are going to manipulate it. Is Section 305 not clear? Did it state anywhere that they're going to remove a governor? Did it state anywhere that you remove a House of Assembly? Did it say anywhere? And there have been judgment in 2013, including from Lagos State, against the Attorney General of the Federation that said, no, you cannot remove democratically elected persons if you are putting the state of emergency. The power you are stating the emergency is the fact that if you have 5,000 troops in rivers and there are crises in rivers, you declare state of emergency, you can put 20,000 troops there so that you can quench the issue. And how do you blame any state governor when they do not have control of any military agency, any police, any security agency? They have no control of it. And even you are the chief security officer of the country. You are the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. So every part of this country that have challenges, the blame comes to you. It shouldn't go to any subnational. But when it comes to economic improvement, economic prosperity, policy-driven processes that will help those economies within that state to prosper, people can blame the governor. When it comes to allocation, which comes to federation account fact and then shared among states, if it comes to mismanagement of those resources, then you can blame the governor. I am one person who will never condone corruption. But there's a proverb, there's the kind of, when you find that today, somebody walks past there and something that was kept there is missing, the first suspicion goes to that person. You find out that when Bala Mohammed is no longer agree with most of the statements that I've made, when Bala Mohammed has started to say, oh, Peter Obi is the leader of the opposition, I will work with him. Bam, the next 3 days, his Attorney General was already arrested. So security agency must not be seen to be working in politics, just like our Supreme Court has now almost diving into politics and warning governors. Look at today, look at the lies that was told. That the Rivers State Assembly is not under construction. It is almost complete. It's almost in the process of completion. We saw it on video. So how do you take that and not being that democracy have collapsed?
But I mean, that statement sounds rather hyperbolic. Wouldn't you agree, Chief Ameh? Because I mean, it is true that there are so many issues wrong or that need to be sorted out with the democratic process. But to say it has collapsed completely, you're talking about a state of anarchy, and that's not what we have in this country. Isn't it possible to highlight the challenges while also admitting that we've made some level of progress?
When democracy collapses, democracy is different from security issues. Democracy what democracy does is to talk about the governance structure, the ability for people to participate in the process that will be free, that will be fair, and that will be just. And that's why when you take out of office, they say you shall be, you be fair and just to all men, no matter their tribe, no matter where they come from. So when we say something has collapsed, it doesn't mean that the country itself has fallen. The governance system, the people continue to administer security, it doesn't matter. But you can have government without democracy. You understand? But you can have government without, but you can't have democracy in a situation that the institution that determines the issues that determines a fair process, a just process is not in existence. Then there's a challenge. We're having a problem where we need to have a democratic practice that have a fair playing, that create a fair playing ground for a child, a person born in massacre, or a person born in Maitu, or a person. You don't have a class-driven democratic process. You have a level playing democratic. When Vijay Koka was talking yesterday, he talked about Laviante, about when the state of the country, in those days when the state of nature, when it's brutish, nasty. You understand? So you talk about that. We are not in that state right now. But sincerely, the kind of power that has been concentrated in the center, further weakening our democratic institution, weakening our democratic practice, and makes it look as if, when you go against government, if you go against government in a way that government does not like, they can come after you. That's no democracy. The freedom you enjoy, in America now, what they have is excessive liberalism, where people can protest for price of dog. Look at the other time, people were protesting.
But you can also talk about, we always bring in, when drawing parallels with other countries, America always comes in, as you were just about to allude to there. And what we see also in America is a strange development under Trump, where you get a sense that political allies are being targeted, withdrawing their security details, their security clearances, which has always been guaranteed institutionally on all of these things. Isn't that a natural phenomenon that these systems, as popular as they are on a global scale, are a work in progress? When former President Olusegun Obasanjo is saying, listen, there's something dysfunctional in terms of the relationship with the Western democracy and our African culture, and we're still struggling to try to come up with something homegrown. And that's why we're experiencing all these distorted forms that we are experiencing.
I'm a student of political science, and I can tell you what Trump is doing today is the same advice why we're giving the present government advice, because people who took over for him did things they shouldn't have done. So he's also doing that. So you don't break the system, and try to expect your opponent to do the same, not to do the same to you. And that's why we advise, even Trump too should be careful, because he's also laying foundation for the next person that is coming. So you find out that judges are still stopping Trump from taking on democratic
actions. And he's still ignoring them.
Yes, but he can't survive for too long.
Would you say the Tinubu administration is also ignoring the judiciary?
I've not seen what we are saying is the undercourt, perception, because when there's a public perception, look at Justice Agim at the Calabar convocation ceremony.
Some would say that is, a storm in a teacup. It's a coincidence, isn't it?
You can call it a coincidence. For public perception, it's a dangerous thing. The judiciary, the courts, they don't only survive on the basis of law. They survive on trust from the public, which is public perception. If he had gotten there and he had sat maybe 200 another side from him, he could have even done better. You understand? You can't sit down close and you are cozy and you are discussing, you are smiling.
So tomorrow, if I see High Chief with a commissioner of police or a member of the management team of INEC, am I to draw the conclusions that you're colluding with them?
They're not the judiciary. These are public servants. Anybody can meet with them. You can have issues and see a commissioner of police. You can meet.
So you can't be seen with a judge at a public event.
The judges shouldn't be seen mixing up with politicians that have controversial issues and controversial stand in the public. The public draw a conclusion, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Wrongfully?
Why will you say it's wrongfully? Do you have a data-driven processes to gather those information? So
he might be a justice of the Supreme Court, but he also has the fundamental human right to associate, to be at that event.
Why do nobody? I'm not going to say it doesn't have that right. It's even an alumni of the school. But we're saying,
he shouldn't be sitting next to Wike.
What we see is look. Why the Supreme Court issue no sort of statement? If it doesn't bother them, if these issues
because people like you are drawing conclusions.
I'm not drawing conclusion with what you have seen. Right. A perception is almost the high level of reality. You cannot want to clean something and then use another hand to rub it. We have a democratic system, we have a judiciary, we have the executive and the National Assembly. And we must be seeing them to be working. Look, why are people calling the National Assembly rubber stamp today? Which is obviously a rubber stamp National Assembly because of their action. Because of the way they don't even debate issues, they don't put the issue objectively. People complain they don't have to talk. They passed an emergency order of the president without proper robust debate for Nigerian people to see. You don't allow people who are in the opposition to speak. Even people in your own party are afraid. So what do you tell me that this is not a semi-quasi dictatorship? You have to be able to, when I mean semi, that means it's half. You need to have a process. That they must look. The National Assembly was not made for people to come. Everybody represents a constituency and a district. So you cannot have people from my district be deprived of the opportunity to have a robust discussion on issues as it affects our community. You can't have a situation where the National Assembly that every senator there are equal. It is just a privilege that you are presiding officer. They can call you Senate President, but you're just a presiding officer. And you cannot now wake up and suspend another senator. Even when there's law, even when there's a judgment of the Supreme Court that said that the Senate has no right to suspend any senator beyond 14 days. If not, we're in a state of this collapsed system of democratic system. Why do you think that when the law clearly says you can't do more than 14 days, they go on to do it? Because nobody will do anything. Why do you think that if instead of the revenue and fiscal mobilization, the one that is responsible for paying salaries of public officers, a letter will be written to them and they will stop paying a senator that is elected for a term of 4 years? The Senate does not pay that money. So there are a lot of undemocratic decisions that have been taken that are going further to weaken the fabric of our democratic development, that are going further to show that people do not have the right. There was a governance protest here. I participated in that protest because I was at the National Stadium when people were injured. You don't do democracy by that. Your own citizens must have the freedom to express themselves peacefully and respectfully, to be able to communicate their problem to those who have put themselves forward to run government on their behalf.
The government will counter and say all of these protests happened with even police protection, but that's not the main point here. What I want us to wrap up on is the idea that people who espouse those positions have this holier than thou mentality, even though the antecedents, is public for all to see, right? Give me a sense of where these sort of pontifications are leading to, because there appears to be no solutions in the entire debate. It's just giving Nigeria a bad name, giving leaders a bad name, and that's where the story ends. We will, end of story. And we keep complaining about these things. Where is the viable alternative on the other side of the aisle, on the opposition side, when it comes to helping Nigeria's democracy survive what you say is an onslaught?
The opposition is a government outside government, and I think they should do more. I think they should be able to hold government more accountable to the people, and the citizen disengagement from questioning their government also leads to lack of accountability. Also leads to the fact that the government become too powerful, because citizens' disengagement after election, citizens feel that the only thing they can contribute to democracy is to go and vote. Democracy is a pre, during and post-election phases. In the post-election phases, citizens must continue to ask questions and engage government in a very peaceful and very democratic manner to ask them what they need to do to be able to better the lives of the citizens. And for us to go further, it's not about trying to give a bad name. This country belongs to all of us. We have more opportunity to decide to live anywhere in the world, but we have told ourselves that we'll be here, we will struggle, and work with all stakeholders to make sure that this country works. And if we see that something is not working, it is the onus bears on us to speak and also tell government how to direct the course. If a government is a listening government, if a government has the democratic credentials they claim to have, I think one of the things they would have done was say, yes, we declared the state of emergency. You felt this was not enough. We have withdrawn it because even our friends, even those who encouraged us in the past and those who were with us before and those who are against us, are unanimously saying that this is undemocratic. And to that effect, we withdraw the state of emergency. The state sole administration is hereby, stop from continue. Let all democratic institutions start to function. That will show that you have government that listens. That is the right thing, because you can't say that the next response you got from them after all the outcry was to say, we won't keep it longer than necessary. Right. So that is not a statement.
High Chief Peter Ameh, interesting conversation. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Daybreak. We appreciate you for being a part of the conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Right.